The dust on Kepler 442c hadn't been disturbed in millions of years. Dr. Hana Kim knelt in the ancient chamber, her gloved hand hovering over stone that shouldn't exist. The readings on her scanner made no sense. This structure was older than the oldest known civilization in the galaxy. Much older, how old? Asked Ji-won Kang, the young pilot who had flown them to this forgotten planet. He stood behind her, his helmet reflecting the strange blue glow that filled the chamber. 65 million years, give or take, Hana whispered. Her voice shook slightly. In her 10 years as a xenoarchaeologist, she had never found anything like this. The Galactic Council said the oldest spacefaring species was only 40 million years old. This chamber was built 25 million years before that. Ji-won whistled low. That's impossible. I know, Hana said, but the evidence was right in front of her. The chamber stretched out like a cathedral, its walls covered in symbols she couldn't read. At the center stood a massive pillar, and above it, a holographic star map flickered with faint light. The map showed the galaxy as it had looked millions of years ago, when the stars were in different positions. She stood and walked toward the pillar. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space. The rest of her team was outside, setting up camp. Only Ji-won had followed her into the ruins. He was supposed to be just a pilot, but he was curious. Too curious sometimes. Look at this, Hana said, pointing at the base of the pillar. Carved into the stone was a symbol. A perfect sphere, blue and green, with white swirls across its surface. Her breath caught in her throat. Is that? Ji-won stepped closer. Earth, Hana finished. That's Earth's emblem. Our emblem. They stared at it in silence. Earth's emblem was a simple design, chosen when humanity first reached the stars 50 years ago. It showed their home planet as it looked from space. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Nothing special, nothing unique. Except here it was, carved into stone 65 million years old, on a planet 1,200 light-years from Earth. This doesn't make sense, Ji-won said. Humans didn't even exist 65 million years ago. Dinosaurs were still around. I know, Hana said again. Her mind raced through possibilities. Coincidence? No, the symbol was too exact. A hoax? Impossible. Nobody had been to this planet in recorded history. The location was too remote, too dangerous to reach. They had only come here because of strange energy readings picked up by a deep space probe. She activated her communicator. Dr. Choi, are you there? Static crackled for a moment. Then her mentor's voice came through. Dr. Minho Choi was back on Earth, monitoring the expedition remotely. I'm here, Hana. What did you find? I'm sending you images now, she said, activating her helmet camera. Tell me what you see. She heard nothing but silence on the other end. The seconds stretched out. Finally, Minho spoke. His voice sounded strange, tight. Hana, I need you to document everything. Every symbol, every measurement. But don't touch anything yet. What is it? She asked. Do you recognize the symbol? Just document everything, Minho repeated. Then he cut the connection. Hana looked at Ji-won. The pilot shrugged. Your mentor's weird sometimes. Yeah, Hana agreed, but something felt wrong. Minho had seen something in those images that scared him. She had worked with him for 5 years. She knew his voice. That was fear. I'm going to look around more, Ji-won said. He wandered toward the far wall where more symbols were carved into the stone. Hana turned back to the pillar. Around the Earth symbol were lines of text in a language she had never seen. The characters were angular, precise. They reminded her of mathematics more than words. She took pictures of everything, zooming in on each detail. Hana? Ji-won's voice came from across the chamber. I think I did something. She spun around. Ji-won had his hand pressed against a panel on the wall. The panel was glowing with the same blue light as the holographic star map. As she watched, more panels lit up across the chamber. The light spread like water, flowing through channels carved into the floor and walls. What did you do? Hana ran toward him. I don't know. I just touched it. Ji-won stepped back from the wall. It felt warm, like it was alive. The holographic star map above the pillar blazed brighter. New images appeared around it. Ships. Massive ships. Larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved through the ancient galaxy, traveling between stars. Then the pillar itself began to change. The stone surface rippled like water and new text appeared, not in the angular alien script, but in Korean, in English, in Mandarin. In every human language, Hana read the words aloud, her voice barely a whisper. When the children of Terra see this sign, let them know. You are never the newcomers. You are the returners, Terra, G1 said. That's Earth, the old name for Earth. I know what Terra means, Hana snapped. Her mind was spinning. This didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. How could a structure built 65 million years ago mention humanity? How could it know human languages? More text appeared below the first message. We left our children sleeping. We left them safe. The war was too terrible, the price too high. But we knew the enemy would return. We knew our children would need to wake up. What war? G1 asked. What enemy? Hana shook her head. She didn't have answers. But the message continued. You are not what you think you are. The blood in your veins is older than the stars you see. The instincts you feel are memories. The technology you build is remembering. When you reach the stars, Terra's children, know that you are coming home. The hologram shifted again. This time it showed a planet. Blue and green and beautiful. Earth. But the continents were wrong. The shapes didn't match the modern world. This was Earth from millions of years ago. Around the ancient Earth, the hologram showed dozens of massive installations, space stations, weapons platforms, shipyards, and ships. So many ships. Then the hologram showed something else, darkness spreading through space. Not empty darkness, but something alive, something hungry. The darkness consumed stars. It consumed planets. The ships from Earth fought against it. The battle was terrible. Beautiful and terrible. Finally, the hologram showed the darkness being pushed back. Driven away. But the cost was clear. The ships around Earth were gone. The stations were destroyed. Only Earth remained, and even Earth was wounded. The hologram showed a massive impact. The dinosaurs died. The world burned. And then, silence, the lights faded. The hologram disappeared. Hana and G1 stood in the dim chamber, barely breathing. Did we just watch the extinction of the dinosaurs? G1 finally asked. Yes, Hana said. And I think we just learned that it wasn't an asteroid. It was a weapon. A weapon used by whoever built this place. A weapon used by us. That's crazy, G1 said. But he didn't sound convinced. Neither of them did. Hana's communicator crackled to life again. Minho's voice came through, urgent now. Hana, listen to me very carefully. You need to leave that planet right now. Don't ask questions. Just go. What? Why? Because what you found is going to change everything, Minho said. And there are people who don't want things to change. Get back to the ship now. Hana looked at G1. The pilot nodded. They both understood. Whatever they had discovered here, it was dangerous. Not because of what it was, but because of what it meant. As they ran back through the ruins toward their ship, Hana couldn't stop thinking about the message. You were never the newcomers. You are the returners. Humanity had always been told they were young. New to the galaxy. Primitive compared to the ancient species who had been traveling the stars for millions of years. But what if that was a lie? What if humanity wasn't young at all? What if they were the oldest? What if they had simply forgotten? And if that was true, what else had they forgotten? What else was waiting out there in the dark, ready to remember them? The Galactic Council headquarters hung in space like a jewel. It orbited a neutron star, protected by shields that bent light itself. Ambassador Yuna Lee stared out the window of her quarters, watching ships from 1,000 worlds arrive for the summit. This was humanity's moment, their chance to prove they belonged among the stars. She smoothed down her formal jacket. The blue and green Earth emblem sat over her heart. Such a simple symbol. Most alien species had complex designs full of history and meaning. Earth just had a picture of home. You ready? Captain Day Park stood in the doorway. He wore his military dress uniform, all sharp lines and polished buttons. He was here as security, but also as a reminder. Humanity might be new to the galactic stage, but they weren't helpless. As ready as I'll ever be, Yuna said. She picked up her tablet, reviewing her speech one last time. It was carefully written, humble but confident. They needed to make a good impression. The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of delegates sat in circular rows that spiraled up toward a domed ceiling. The air had to be filtered and adjusted constantly to accommodate species that breathed everything from oxygen to methane. Translation devices hummed, converting speech into thousands of languages. Yuna took her place at the speaker's platform. Above her, High Arbiter Velthun presided over the assembly. He was a being of living crystal, ancient and cold. His species had been traveling the stars for 40 million years. They had built the council. They set the rules. The Council recognizes Earth, Velton said. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. You may present your application for junior membership. Junior membership. The word stung, but Una kept her face neutral. Humanity had been in space for 50 years. Some species in this room had been traveling the galaxy for millions. They had to start somewhere. Honored members of the Council, Una began, we come before you in peace and friendship. Earth may be young in the ways of the galaxy, but we bring determination, curiosity, and a desire to learn from those wiser than us. Some delegates listened politely. Others were clearly bored. A few whispered among themselves, not even bothering to hide their disdain. Humanity was nothing special, just another primitive species learning to walk among giants. Una continued through her speech, presenting Earth's achievements. Their technology, their culture, their desire to contribute to the galactic community. It all sounded so small compared to species that built Dyson spheres and moved planets. To demonstrate our commitment to knowledge and understanding, Una said, reaching the final part of her presentation, we have brought a scholar to share a recent discovery. Dr. Hana Kim will present findings that we believe will interest the Council. Hana walked to the platform. She looked nervous. She had arrived just hours before, her ship racing from Kepler 442c. She hadn't even had time to rest. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Honored Council, Hana said, her voice shaking slightly. I am a xenoarchaeologist. I study the ruins of ancient civilizations. 3 days ago, my team discovered something unprecedented. She activated the holographic projector. Images of the chamber on Kepler 442c filled the air above the platform. Delegates leaned forward, suddenly interested. The ruins were impressive, even to species that had seen worlds beyond counting. These structures are 65 million years old, Hana continued. 25 million years older than the earliest confirmed spacefaring civilization. Murmurs spread through the chamber. That got their attention. The age of civilizations was a matter of pride among the elder species. Being first meant power, respect. But the most remarkable discovery, Hana said, her finger hovering over the controls, was this. The hologram changed. The pillar appeared, carved with its strange symbols, and there at the center was Earth's emblem. The blue and green sphere unmistakable. The chamber went silent. Completely silent. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds, all frozen. The only sound was the hum of the air filters. Una felt the hair on her neck stand up. Something was wrong. This wasn't the reaction she expected. Interest, yes. Curiosity, certainly. But not this. Not fear. High Arbiter Velthun rose from his seat. His crystalline body flickered with colors Una had never seen before. When he spoke, his voice carried an edge like breaking glass. Where did you find this? Kepler 442c, Hana said. In the northern hemisphere, buried under... That symbol, Velthun interrupted. You are certain it appeared as shown? Yes, Arbiter. Our scans confirmed. This session is concluded, Velthun declared. His voice rang through the chamber like a bell. All delegates will return to their quarters immediately. Chaos erupted. Delegates stood, speaking rapidly in their own languages. Some rushed for the exits. Others gathered in tight groups, their body language radiating alarm. Una saw species that had been enemies for centuries suddenly speaking to each other, united by whatever they saw in that symbol. Captain Day moved to Una's side instantly, his hand near his weapon. We need to leave now. What just happened? Hana asked, bewildered. What did I do? You showed them something they recognize, Day said grimly. Something that scares them. They hurried through the corridors back to the human quarters. Other species gave them a wide berth now. Some stared with what looked like awe. Others with clear hostility. One delegate, a being of flowing energy, actually bowed as they passed. Once inside their secured rooms, Day locked the door and activated jamming fields. Talk, he said to Hana. What else did you find? Hana told them about the message. About the hologram showing ancient Earth. About the war against the darkness. About the words, you are the returners. Una sank into a chair. They know. All of them know something we don't. We need answers, Day said. And we need them before this turns into a war. A chime sounded at the door. Day's hand went to his weapon again. Who is it? High Arbiter Velton, came the response. I request permission to enter. I am alone. Day and Una exchanged glances. The leader of the Galactic Council here? Alone, that was unprecedented. Una nodded. Day opened the door. Belton entered, his crystal form dimmed to a soft glow. He looked at each of them in turn, his alien features unreadable. Finally he spoke. "You do not know," he said. It wasn't a question. "You truly do not know what you are." "Then tell us," Una said firmly. Veltun was silent for a long moment. "There are archives," he finally said. "Forbidden archives that only the eldest species may access. They contain records from before the modern galaxy. Records of the time we call the Endless War." "What war?" Hana asked. "A war that nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy," Veltun said. "A war fought against an enemy from beyond our space. An enemy that consumed worlds. And there was only one species powerful enough to stand against them. We called them the Ancients. They called themselves Terrans." The word hung in the air. Terrans, another name for humans. Terra was Latin for Earth. "You're saying humans fought this war?" Day asked. 65 million years ago? "Not you," Veltun said. "Your ancestors. A species so advanced they could reshape reality itself. They won the war. They drove back the darkness. But the cost was terrible. When it was over, they made a choice that no species has ever made before or since." "What choice?" Una whispered. "They chose to forget," Veltun said. "They destroyed their own empire, erased their own technology, reset their own evolution. They returned to their homeworld and began again from nothing. Because they believed that the power they possessed had corrupted them. Made them too dangerous." "That's insane," Hana said. "Perhaps," Veltun agreed, "but they left a promise. When their children reached the stars again, naturally and peacefully, they would be worthy of the truth. They would be ready to reclaim what was lost. Because the enemy, the darkness, would eventually return, and when it did, the galaxy would need its protectors again." He gestured to the Earth emblem on Una's jacket. "That symbol is known throughout the Forbidden Archives. It is the mark of the Ancients, the sign of the Terrans, and its return to the stars was prophesied to herald either salvation or destruction." "Which one?" Dai asked. "That," Veltun said, "is what we are about to discover, because Dr. Kim's discovery has just told every species in the galaxy that the returners are here, and some will welcome you as saviors. Others will see you as the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced." He moved toward the door, then paused. "You asked for junior membership, but there is no such thing as a junior Terran. You are either what you were, or the galaxy will make sure you never become it again. Choose wisely." After he left, the three humans sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humanity had just been turned upside down. They weren't the newcomers. They were the oldest, the strongest, the most feared. And somewhere out in the dark, something was coming that would test whether they deserved to remember that power. The Forbidden Archives lay deep beneath the Galactic Council, behind doors that hadn't opened in 10,000 years. Veltun led them down through corridors carved from solid crystal, each step taking them further from the political world above and deeper into buried history. "Not many are permitted to see what you will see," Veltun said. His voice echoed strangely in the narrow passage. "My own species has debated for millennia whether these records should be destroyed. But we kept them. We kept them because we feared forgetting more than we feared remembering." Hana walked close behind him, her scientific curiosity warring with growing dread. Captain Day kept his hand near his weapon, though what good it would do this far from help he didn't know. Ambassador Una brought up the rear, her diplomat's mind already trying to understand the political implications of whatever they were about to learn. The archives were vast, row after row of crystalline data storage, each containing the memories and records of civilizations long dead. Some of the storage units were cracked, their information lost to time. Others glowed faintly, still preserving secrets from ages past. Veltun stopped before a section marked with symbols Hana didn't recognize. "This section contains records from the late Cretaceous period, as you would call it, 65 to 70 million years ago." He touched a crystal and it blazed to life. Images filled the air. Not holograms like the ones on Kepler 442c, but something more. These images had depth, texture, almost reality. They were memories stored perfectly, waiting to be experienced again. The first image showed a galaxy at war. Not the organized, rule-bound conflicts of the modern council, but something primal and desperate. Entire star systems burned. Planets were torn apart. And through the destruction moved shapes that made Hana's mind hurt to look at them. The Devourers, Veltun said quietly. We do not know where they came from. Beyond the galactic rim, perhaps. From another dimension, possibly. They appeared without warning and began consuming everything. Not just planets. Not just life. They consumed space itself, leaving nothing behind but empty void. How do you fight something like that? Dai asked, his soldier's mind already analyzing the tactical situation shown in the ancient memories. You don't, Veltun said. The younger species tried. Billions died. Civilizations that had stood for millions of years were erased in days. The galaxy was losing, until they appeared. The image changed. Ships emerged from a blue-green world. Ships that made the mightiest vessels of the current age look like toys. They moved through space with impossible grace, wielding weapons that bent reality itself. Where the Devourers consumed, these ships created. Where the Devourers left void, these ships brought light. The Terrans, Hana whispered. She recognized the ships now. They matched the designs from the hologram on Kepler 442c. Yes, Veltun confirmed. They came from that world. The image zoomed in, showing Earth as it was millions of years ago. But this Earth was different. It wasn't just a planet. It was a fortress. Massive orbital installations surrounded it. The moon had been hollowed out and turned into a weapons platform. Even the continents below showed signs of technology that shouldn't exist. My God, Yuna breathed. We did all that? Your ancestors did, Veltun said. The Terrans were not conquerors. They had never expanded beyond their home system. They had the power to claim the galaxy, but they chose isolation. They studied. They built. They perfected their technology in peace. And when the Devourers came, they were the only species with the tools to fight back. The memory showed the war in terrible detail. Terran ships fought with weapons that seemed like magic. They created temporary universes to trap Devourers. They manipulated time to undo consumption. They wielded energy on scales that dwarfed stars, but the Devourers adapted. For every weapon the Terrans created, the Devourers found a counter. The war stretched on for years, then decades. The other species of the galaxy could only watch as Titans battled for existence itself. How did it end? Day asked. The memory shifted to show a massive structure being built in deep space. It took hundreds of Terran ships working in concert, manipulating matter and energy in ways that made no sense. The final weapon, Veltun said. We do not fully understand what it was. Our records call it the Dimensional Anchor. The Terrans activated it during the last great battle. Every Devourer in the galaxy was drawn to it, pulled by forces they could not resist. And then, the memory showed a flash of light that seemed to tear reality apart. When it faded, the Devourers were gone, simply gone. But the cost was clear. Most of the Terran fleet had been destroyed in the activation. Their orbital stations around Earth were damaged beyond repair. The weapon itself had created instabilities in space that would take millions of years to heal. They won, Hana said. They saved the galaxy? They did, Veltun agreed. And the surviving species of the galaxy came to Earth to thank them. To offer them leadership of a new galactic order, to make them rulers of all we had. The memory showed fleets from dozens of species arriving at Earth. Beings of every shape and size coming to bow before the Terrans. Yuna recognized some of the species. They still existed today, though changed by millions of years of evolution. But the Terrans refused, Veltun said. They looked at what they had become, at the weapons they had created, at the power they wielded, and they were horrified. The memory shifted to show Terrans themselves. They looked human. Not identical to modern humans, but close enough that Hana felt a shock of recognition. These were her ancestors. Her people. A Terran spoke, and the ancient recording translated his words. We have seen what power does. We have felt the temptation to use these weapons not just for defense, but for control. We have stood at the edge of becoming what we fought against. We will not cross that line. What did they do? Yuna asked, though part of her already knew the answer. They made a choice, Veltun said. A choice so radical that most species thought them insane. They would destroy their civilization, erase their technology, reset their own evolution. They would return to being simple creatures, starting over from the beginning. The memory showed the Terrans dismantling their empire. Ships were flown into the sun. Stations were crashed into planets. The knowledge of their technology was encrypted and hidden across the galaxy in places that would take millions of years to find. But they kept something, Hana said. They left clues. The chambers. The symbols? Yes, Velthun confirmed, because they knew the Devourers might return. The final weapon had not destroyed them, only banished them, sent them away to some distant place. But exile is not death. Eventually they would find a way back. So the Terrans left a trail, Hana said, understanding now. A way for their descendants to find the truth if they needed it. More than that, Velthun said. They left instructions. Hidden in your very genetics. The knowledge of how to fight the Devourers. The ability to use the ancient technology. It sleeps in your DNA, waiting to wake up when your species reaches the stars naturally, peacefully, without the corruption of inherited power. He activated another crystal. This one showed Earth's moon. The memory zoomed inside, revealing vast chambers and machines that still functioned after 65 million years. Your moon is a weapon, Velthun said. The largest, most powerful weapon ever constructed. It is keyed to activate only in the presence of Terran DNA, and only when the Devourers return. Your ancestors built it as their final gift to you, their final act of faith that their children would be better than they were. Day stared at the image of the moon, understanding flooding through him. That's why nobody could ever explain its formation. Why it's so perfectly placed. It's not natural. Nothing about Earth is entirely natural, Velthun said. The dinosaurs were not killed by chance. The Terrans deliberately reset their homeworld. They used the last of their great weapons to wipe the slate clean, giving evolution a chance to begin again without the shadow of their empire. Yuna felt tears on her face. The extinction event that killed the dinosaurs, the asteroid that ended an era. It was a choice, a sacrifice. The Terrans had destroyed their own world to give their descendants a fresh start. Why are you showing us this? Hana asked. Why now? Velthun's crystal form flickered, showing colors of deep concern. Because the waiting is over. Our long-range sensors have detected gravitational anomalies at the edge of the galaxy. Patterns that match records from the war. The Devourers have found their way back. Silence filled the archives. The weight of millions of years pressed down on them. How long? Dai asked, his military training taking over. Months, Velthun said. Perhaps a year. They are still far away, moving through intergalactic space. But they are coming. And when they arrive, they will remember this galaxy. They will remember what hurt them. They will come for Earth first. Then we wake up, Hana said firmly. We activate whatever the Terrans left us. We remember. And risk becoming what they feared? Velthun challenged. Risk becoming so powerful that you threaten all of us? The Terrans chose to forget because they were alone, Yuna said slowly. Because there was no one to balance their power. No one to keep them honest. But we're not alone. We've spent 50 years learning to work with other species. Learning humility. Learning that we're part of something bigger. She looked at Velthun directly. The Terrans were afraid of what they might become. But maybe there. The news spread through human space like wildfire. Within hours of the council meeting, every human colony, every ship, every station knew the truth. Humanity wasn't young. They were the oldest, the most powerful, the most feared. Commander Sora Bay stood in the war room beneath Sol, watching reports flood in from across Earth and beyond. Military installations were on high alert. Not because of external threats, but because nobody knew how humanity would react to this revelation. Half the population thinks it's a hoax, her second-in-command reported. The other half is split between terror and excitement. What about the military? Sora asked. Waiting for orders, ma'am. But there's talk. Some say we should claim our rightful place as rulers of the galaxy. Others say we should reject this entirely. Stay as we are. Sora understood both positions. She had spent 30 years in the military, defending human interests against the occasional pirate or hostile alien faction. The idea that humanity had once been galactic protectors was intoxicating, but it was also dangerous. Get me Dr. Choi, she ordered. Minutes later, Dr. Minho Choi's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted. The past few days had aged him years, Commander, he said wearily. You knew, Sora said. Not an accusation. A statement, Minho nodded slowly. I suspected. For decades I found evidence, anomalies in our fossil record, strange isotopes that shouldn't exist, mathematical patterns in our DNA that looked engineered. But I had no proof. And even if I did, who would believe me? Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I was afraid, Minho admitted. Afraid of what we might become if we knew. The Terrans were so powerful they scared themselves. What would happen if humanity learned we were their descendants? Would we try to reclaim that power? Would we repeat their mistakes?
It's too late for that now, Sora said.
The truth is out. We need to deal with it. I know, Minho said. And there's more. I've been monitoring lunar seismic data for years. There are structures inside the moon. Massive structures. They're starting to activate. Sora felt a chill. Felthun said the moon was a weapon. It is, Minho confirmed. But it's more than that. It's a repository, a library, a training facility. The Terrans left everything we need to fight the Devourers, but it will only respond to human DNA, and only to humans who reach it peacefully, not through force. Then we need to get people there. Now, while Earth struggled with the revelation, something else was happening across human space. People were changing. Jiwan Kang woke screaming. Again. The dreams were getting worse. Every night he saw himself piloting ships he had never flown, fighting battles that happened millions of years ago. The knowledge felt both foreign and familiar, like remembering something from early childhood. He stumbled to his bathroom and splashed water on his face. In the mirror, his eyes looked different, sharper, more alert. He felt like he was waking up from a long sleep. His communicator chimed. It was Captain Day. Jiwan, are you experiencing any unusual symptoms? Day asked without preamble. Dreams, Jiwan said. Memories that aren't mine. You're not alone, Day said. It's happening to pilots and engineers across human space, people who work with spacecraft. The Terran genetic memory is activating. The knowledge is returning. Is it dangerous? We don't know, Day admitted. But we need you back at the council station. Commander Sora is organizing an expedition to the moon. She wants experienced pilots, people who are already showing signs of awakening. Jiwan agreed immediately. The dreams were frightening, but they were also exhilarating. Part of him wanted to understand, wanted to remember fully. On Earth's moon, ancient mechanisms stirred. For 65 million years, they had waited. Now human DNA was close enough to trigger their protocols. Deep beneath the lunar surface, lights began to glow. Systems powered up, and a message transmitted on frequencies only human technology could detect. Welcome home, children of Terra. The time of remembering has come. The first human expedition to the activated moon base consisted of 50 volunteers, scientists, engineers, pilots, soldiers, all carefully selected, all showing signs of genetic awakening. Commander Sora led the team personally. She had to see this with her own eyes. The entrance was in the Sea of Tranquility, not far from where humanity had first landed in 1969. How fitting, Sora thought. Humanity's first step onto the moon had been the beginning. Now they were taking the next step. The door was massive, carved from lunar rock but reinforced with materials that scans couldn't identify. As Sora approached, it began to open, responding to her presence, recognizing her DNA. Inside was a chamber that defied human architecture. It was too large, too complex. The walls glowed with soft light. Symbols covered every surface. And in the center stood a pillar, much like the one Hana had found on Kepler 442c. As the team entered, the pillar activated. A hologram appeared. Not just an image, but something with presence. It looked human, but perfect. Ideal. Like humanity distilled into its best form. Welcome, the hologram said. Its voice was kind but ancient. I am the Keeper, left here by your ancestors to guide you when the time came. You have questions. I have answers. Are we really Terrans? Sora asked. Are we really that powerful? You are and you are not, the Keeper replied. The Terrans were your ancestors, but you are not them. They chose to reset, to become simpler, to evolve naturally. You are what they hoped to become. Human, fallible, capable of both greatness and failure. Why did they leave all this? Asked Jiwan, who stood near the front of the group. Because they knew the Devourers would return, the Keeper said. And they knew their descendants would need the tools to fight. But they also knew that power corrupts. So they hid the tools, made them accessible only to humans who reached the stars through cooperation and peace, not conquest. Can you teach us? Sora asked. Can you show us how to use what they left? I can, the Keeper said. But know this, the knowledge I give you will change you. Not physically, but mentally. You will remember things that happened before you were born. You will understand technology that seems like magic. Some of you may lose yourselves in the memories. The awakening is not without risk. The team looked at each other. Fear mixed with determination. We don't have a choice, Usora said firmly. The Devourers are coming. Show us what we need to know. The Keeper raised one hand. Light flowed from the pillar, touching each person in the chamber. And with the light came knowledge. Jiwan gasped as understanding flooded through him. He saw ships. Not just their designs, but how they flew, how they thought. Terran ships weren't piloted, they were partnered with. The pilot and ship became one, their minds linked. Sora saw weapons. Not crude explosives or lasers, but devices that manipulated reality itself. She saw tactics and strategies from a war that spanned centuries. The scientists saw mathematics that made their previous understanding look childish. Equations that described dimensions humanity hadn't known existed. When the transfer ended, several people collapsed. Others stood in shock, their minds struggling to process what they had learned. But they all knew. They all understood. This is just the beginning, the Keeper said. Throughout this facility are ships, weapons, and tools left for you. But remember, with this power comes responsibility. Your ancestors fell because they forgot that. Do not repeat their mistake. Back on Earth, not everyone celebrated the awakening. In cities across the planet, protests erupted. Some demanded that humanity reject this ancient legacy. Others insisted they claim their rightful place as galactic rulers. Violence broke out in several locations. Ambassador Yuna watched the chaos from the council station, her heart heavy. We're tearing ourselves apart, she said to Hana, who stood beside her. Change is always violent, Hana replied. The Terrans knew that. That's why they reset. But we can't reset. We have to move forward. How? Yuna asked. How do we unite humanity when half wants to be gods and half wants to stay human? By reminding them why we went to space in the first place, Hana said. Not for power, not for conquest. For curiosity, for discovery, for the chance to be part of something bigger than ourselves. She turned to face Yuna directly. The Terrans had power, but they were alone. They had no equals, no partners. We do. We've spent 50 years building relationships with other species, learning from them. That's our advantage. That's what makes us different. Yuna considered this. Then she smiled slightly. You're right. We need to address the galaxy, not as returning masters, as partners who just learned something important about themselves. That evening, Yuna called for an emergency council session. Representatives from every species gathered, many looking nervous. Humanity's awakening had frightened them. Yuna stood before them, calm and confident. Honored members, humanity stands at a crossroads. We have learned we are descended from the Terrans. We have access to their technology. We could claim power, but we won't. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Terrans failed because they were alone, Yuna continued. They had power but no wisdom to guide it. We have something they lacked. We have you, partners, teachers, friends. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it, together. Why should we trust you? Demanded a delegate from a reptilian species. Power corrupts, always. Then hold us accountable, Yuna said simply. Not everyone was happy with humanity's decision to share power. As the joint task force formed and humans began working alongside aliens to prepare for the Devourers, divisions appeared. Deep divisions that threatened to tear apart everything they were trying to build. On Mars Colony, a group called the Restoration gathered in secret. Their leader was a former military officer named Taeyang Park. He stood before a crowd of 300 humans, all listening intently. They want us to share, Taeyang said, his voice carrying through the meeting hall. They want us to give away what our ancestors left for us, to trust species that have looked down on us for 50 years. Is that what the Terrans would have wanted? No, the crowd shouted back. The Terrans ruled this galaxy, Taeyang continued. They protected it. They saved it. Now their children want to be equals with those they saved. It's insulting. It's wrong. We should reclaim what is ours by right. The crowd erupted in approval. Taeyang felt the energy in the room. These people were angry, frustrated. They had been told all their lives that humanity was weak, new, insignificant. Now they learned the truth and they wanted compensation for those years of disrespect. Tonight, Taeyang said quietly, letting the tension build, we take the first step toward restoration. We will activate one of the Terran caches without permission. We will show the galaxy that humanity doesn't need anyone's approval to claim our heritage. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, an alien armada gathered, ships from 6 different species brought together by fear. Their admiral was a being named Zarthex, from a species that had ruled their sector for 10 million years. Until now, they had been untouchable. Now they faced extinction if humanity truly awakened. How many ships? Zarthex demanded. 4,000, his tactical officer replied. With more arriving every day, we represent the united will of the Outer Coalition. Humanity must be contained. Zarthex studied the tactical display. Earth hung there, blue and green and vulnerable. Around it, the moon glowed with active Terran technology. If they struck now, before humanity fully awakened, they might prevent the Terrans from returning. What about the Council? Asked another officer. They forbid military action against Earth. The Council is weak, Zarthex replied. They hope for cooperation. We prepare for reality. Better to destroy humanity now than face the Terrans later. Back on Earth, Hana worked frantically in her lab. She had access to Terran records now thanks to the lunar facility. The information was overwhelming. Mathematics that rewrote physics. Biology that explained consciousness. History that spanned billions of years across multiple galaxies. But she wasn't looking at weapons or ships. She was searching for something else. Something the Terrans had learned about the Devourers. There had to be more than just force. There had to be understanding. You should rest, Dr. Minho Choi said, entering her lab with coffee. You've been here for 30 hours straight. I'm close, Hana insisted. The Terrans didn't just fight the Devourers. They studied them. Look at this. She pulled up a holographic display. The Devourers aren't evil. They're not even alive in the way we understand it. They're something else. Something from outside our universe. Why? What are they? Minho asked, leaning closer. Entropy made conscious, Hana said. That's what the Terrans called them. They come from a universe that's dying. They consume because consumption is their nature. Like a virus or a cancer, but on a cosmic scale. Can they be reasoned with? No, Hana said sadly. The Terrans tried. But you can't negotiate with a force of nature. You can only redirect it or contain it. The final weapon, Minho said. The dimensional fold. That's what contained them last time. Yes, Hana agreed. But it required hundreds of Terran ships working in perfect coordination. We don't have hundreds of ships. We barely have 20 that can use Terran technology. Her communicator buzzed. It was Captain Day. His face looked grim. We have a situation. The Restoration just activated a weapons cache on Titan. They're refusing to stand down. Hana felt ice in her stomach. What kind of weapons? Planet killers, Day said flatly. Taiyang is demanding that Earth be declared the capital of a new Terran empire. With him as provisional leader, if the Council doesn't agree within 6 hours, he'll demonstrate what the weapons can do. He's insane, Minho breathed. He's scared, Hana corrected. Scared that we'll give away our power. Scared that the aliens will destroy us. Fear makes people do terrible things. What can we do? Minho asked. We talk to him, Hana said. Before someone else does something stupid. 2 hours later, Hana stood on a shuttle heading toward Titan. Ambassador Yuna and Captain Day were with her. Commander Sora had wanted to send a military strike team, but Yuna had vetoed it. Violence would only prove the Restoration's point. As they approached Titan, they could see the cache. It had been buried under ice for millions of years. Now it stood exposed, a massive black pyramid that pulsed with energy. Around it, hundreds of humans stood guard. They looked determined, fanatical even. Taiyang met them at the entrance. He was younger than Hana expected, maybe 35. His eyes were bright with conviction. Dr. Kim, he said politely. Ambassador Captain, I'm glad you came. Now you can witness the beginning of humanity's true awakening. What you're doing is wrong, Yuna said firmly. The Terrans didn't leave these weapons for conquest. They left them for defense. Defense requires strength, Taiyang countered. The aliens are gathering ships to attack Earth, did you know that? 4,000 warships positioned at the edge of our system. They plan to destroy us before we can fully awaken. And what is the Council doing? Nothing. They're talking. Always talking. Because war isn't the answer, Hana said. The Terrans learned that. They were powerful enough to rule the galaxy by force. But they chose not to. Do you know why? Because they were weak, Taiyang said dismissively. Because they were wise, Hana corrected. They understood that power without purpose is destruction. They could have ruled forever. Instead, they chose to give their descendants a choice. Be what we were, or be something better. Words, Taiyang said. Pretty words while our enemies prepare to kill us. Then let's stop them, Captain Day said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. Not with threats. With action. We go to that fleet. We talk to them. Show them we're not the Terrans they fear. They'll kill you, Taiyang said. Maybe, Day agreed. But if we survive, we prove that cooperation works. And if they kill us, you get to say you were right. Either way, you win. Taiyang studied them for a long moment. You're serious. You'd risk your lives on a diplomatic mission to a hostile fleet. Yes, Yuna said, because that's what the Terrans would have wanted. Not conquest. Not domination, partnership. And if I refuse? Taiyang asked. If I activate these weapons anyway? Then you prove that humanity isn't ready for this power, Hana said quietly. You prove the aliens right, that we're too dangerous to exist. Silence stretched between them. Behind Taiyang, his followers watched nervously. They had signed up to reclaim humanity's glory. But actual genocide? That was different. Finally, Taiyang spoke. 24 hours. I give you 24 hours to succeed. If that fleet hasn't dispersed by then, I activate the weapons. Deal, Yuna said immediately. They returned to their shuttle. As they lifted off, Day let out a long breath. Well, that worked better than expected. Now we just have to convince a hostile alien fleet not to destroy us, Hana said dryly. Should be easy. Yuna pulled up a star map locating the enemy fleet. They were 2 days away at normal speed. But there were Terran ships available now. Fast ships, Jiwon, Yuna said into her communicator. We need you. And bring the fastest ship in the fleet. Hours later, they were aboard a Terran scout ship. Jiwon sat at the controls, his hands moving with a confidence born of genetic memory. The ship responded to him like it was alive. Maybe it was. Terran technology blurred the line between machine and organism. How fast can this thing go? Dee asked. Fast enough, Jiwon said with a grin. Then he engaged the drive. Space folded around them. Not like normal FTL, this was different. Smoother, more elegant. They crossed the distance to the alien fleet in minutes instead of days. When they emerged from the fold, they were surrounded by warships. Thousands of weapons locked onto their small vessel. This is Ambassador Yuna Lee of Earth. Yuna broadcast on all frequencies. We request permission to speak with Admiral Zarthex. We come unarmed. We come in peace, silence. Then a response. You come in a Terran warship. That is not unarmed. This is a scout ship, Yuna replied. It has no weapons. Only speed. We came because we have limited time. Because there are humans who want war and we're trying to prevent it. Another pause. Then, you may board the flagship. Leave your ship behind. Any aggressive action will result in immediate destruction. Understood, Yuna said. They transferred to a shuttle. As they approached the alien flagship, Day whispered, This could be a trap. Probably is, Yuna agreed. But we have to try. Admiral Zarthex met them in a conference room. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that gleamed like polished metal. His eyes were cold, calculating. Speak, he commanded. You have 5 minutes before I order your execution. Yuna stood straight. We know you're afraid. We would be too in your position. The Terrans were powerful. They could have destroyed Part 6. The sensors picked them up 3 weeks before they arrived. Gravitational distortions at the edge of the galaxy. Moving inward. The Devourers were no longer a distant threat. They were real. They were coming. And they were massive. Commander Sora stood in the command center beneath Seoul, watching the tactical display update in real time. Each red dot represented a Devourer vessel. There were hundreds, maybe thousands. The sensors couldn't get an accurate count. How long? She asked her tactical officer. At current speed, 20 days until they reach the outer colonies. 30 until they reach Earth, 30 days. A month to prepare for an enemy that had nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. Sora felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Activate the moon base, she ordered. Full power. And send word to the Council. It's time. Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. Species that had been debating for months suddenly found unity. The Devourers didn't discriminate. They would consume everyone equally. Ships began gathering at designated rally points. Human vessels alongside alien ones. The Council organized them into 3 fleets: defensive, offensive, and evacuation. The defensive fleet would protect populated worlds. The offensive fleet would try to slow the Devourers. The evacuation fleet would save as many lives as possible if everything else failed. Captain Day was given command of the offensive fleet. It was an honor he didn't want. Leading thousands of ships, most from species humanity had known for less than a century. against an enemy that defied understanding. "You're the best choice," Ambassador Yuna told him as he prepared to board his flagship. "The aliens trust you. The humans respect you. And you understand both warfare and diplomacy." "I understand we're probably going to die," Day said grimly. "The Terrans barely won with technology we can't match. What chance do we have?" "We have something they didn't," Yuna said. "Unity. The Terrans fought alone. We fight together," Day wanted to believe her. But as he boarded the flagship, a massive Terran dreadnought called Indomitable, doubt gnawed at him. On the moon, G1 trained with other pilots who showed strong genetic awakening. There were 50 of them now from various human colonies. Each one felt the pull of the ancient technology. Each one remembered things they shouldn't know. The Terran fighters were works of art, sleek, black, impossibly fast. They responded to thought more than touch. G1 sat in the cockpit of his assigned craft, feeling it connect to his nervous system. The sensation was indescribable. He wasn't piloting the ship. He was the ship. "How does it feel?" asked another pilot, a woman named Hyun Kim. "Like waking up," Ji-won replied. "Like I've been half asleep my entire life and now I'm finally fully conscious." "The memories are getting stronger," Hyun said. "I dream about battles I never fought, victories I never won. It's beautiful and terrifying." "We need to be careful," Ji-won warned. "The Keeper said some people lose themselves in the memories, forget who they are. Become the Terrans instead of remaining human." "Is that so bad?" Hyun asked quietly. "The Terrans were powerful. Maybe we need to be them to survive this." Ji-won didn't answer. He didn't know the answer. Dr. Hana Kim worked around the clock in the lunar archives. She had found what she was looking for, the complete records of the final weapon. The dimensional fold that had banished the Devourers last time. The problem was clear. The weapon required precise coordination between hundreds of ships. Even with Terran technology, the margin for error was microscopic. One ship out of position, one timing error, and the fold would collapse. Or worse, it might create a permanent rift in space that would destroy the galaxy itself. "We can't do this," Dr. Minho Choi said, reading the specifications. "We have maybe 20 ships capable of Terran-level precision. We need 200. Then we modify it," Hana said. "The Terrans designed this weapon for their technology. But we have something they didn't. We have variety. Different species, different approaches to physics." She pulled up a new design, combining Terran dimensional physics with alien engineering. "What if we use Terran ships as the core but surround them with vessels from other species? Use their different energy signatures to stabilize the fold?" Minho studied the calculations. "It's insane. You're trying to mix technologies that were never meant to work together." "Exactly," Hana said. "The Terrans thought in terms of purity. Perfect technology, perfectly coordinated. But nature isn't pure. Nature is messy, diverse, adaptable. Maybe that's our advantage. Or maybe it gets everyone killed," Minho said. But he was already running simulations. The first contact with the Devourers came 18 days after detection. They reached a mining colony at the Galactic Rim. 6,000 people lived there. The evacuation fleet arrived 6 hours too late. When they entered the system, there was nothing left. Not ruins, not debris, nothing. The star still burned, but the planets were gone, consumed down to their component atoms. Space itself looked wrong, twisted as if reality had been digested and poorly reassembled. The recordings from the colony's final moments were brief and terrible. Shapes appeared in space, shapes that hurt to look at, that seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. They touched the planets, and the planets simply ceased. No explosion, no struggle, just absence. 6,000 people, Captain Day said, watching the recordings in his command center. Gone in minutes. "We need to slow them down," his tactical officer said. "Buy time for the evacuation." "How do you slow down something that consumes space itself?" Day asked. But he already knew the answer. "You threw ships at it. You sacrificed. You bought time with lives." He addressed his fleet. 15,000 ships, human and alien working together. "All hands, this is Captain Day Park. The enemy has shown us what we're facing. They are death incarnate. They are entropy made conscious. But we are life. We are order. We are the combined will of 100 species who refuse to surrender." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "The Terrans fought alone and won. We fight together. That has to mean something. That has to matter. So we're going to make them pay for every meter of space. Every world they want, they'll have to earn. And maybe, just maybe, we'll buy enough time for the scientists to find a way to stop them permanently. The fleet moved out. They met the Devourers at a system called Epsilon Horizon, 3 inhabited worlds, 8 billion people being evacuated. The battle was unlike anything the modern galaxy had experienced. Devourers moved through space like sharks through water, their impossible forms shifting and changing. Where they passed, ships simply stopped existing. Energy weapons had no effect. Kinetic weapons passed through them like they weren't really there. But Terran weapons worked. The ancient technology could touch them, hurt them. Jiwan led his fighter squadron in close, their ships dancing around the Devourers like fireflies around monsters. Every shot cost them. Every kill took coordination and precision beyond normal human capability. "Target the rifts," Jiwan called to his squadron. The Terran knowledge in his head told him where to shoot. The places where the Devourers connected to normal space. Hit them there and you could sever that connection. Temporarily. His squadron dove and fired. Reality screamed as Terran weapons intersected with Devourer forms. One of the massive shapes flickered and disappeared. Not destroyed, Jiwan knew. Just pushed back, sent away to heal. But even temporary victories mattered now. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it ended, 5,000 ships were gone. But the evacuation succeeded. 8 billion lives saved. "We can't keep doing this," Day said to his command staff after the battle. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them. We need that weapon Hana is working on, soon." On the moon, Hana ran the simulations for the 100th time. The modified dimensional fold was theoretically possible. But theory and practice were different things. "We need to test it," she told Ambassador Yuna. "But testing it means creating an actual dimensional fold. If we mess up, we could destroy the solar system. Then we test it far from home," Yuna said. "Choose an empty system. Gather volunteers. Make it work, Hana. Because if we can't stop the Devourers, there won't be a solar system to protect." The test was scheduled for 1 week later. 200 ships representing 15 species. At the center, 20 Terran vessels piloted by awakened humans. Around them, concentric rings of alien craft, each contributing their unique energy signatures. Hana coordinated from a command ship. Her hand shook as she activated the sequence. This was it. Either they proved diversity could enhance Terran technology, or they created a disaster that would kill everyone involved. "All ships report ready," her technical officer announced. "Begin sequence," Hana ordered. The Terran ships activated first. Space around them began to fold, twisting in ways that made no visual sense. Then the alien ships added their energy. Different frequencies, different approaches to reality manipulation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, beautifully, it worked. The different energies didn't conflict. They harmonized. Like an orchestra where each instrument played a different note that somehow created a perfect chord. A rift opened in space. Not a tier, but a door. A controlled passage to somewhere else. The dimensional fold was stable. More than stable, it was stronger than the Terran original had been. "It works," Minho breathed. "The diversity actually makes it stronger." Hana felt tears on her face. They came for Earth like a tide of darkness. Thousands of Devourers moving through space with terrible purpose. Behind them lay the consumed remnants of a dozen star systems. Ahead of them waited the combined fleets of 100 species, assembled in the largest military formation in galactic history. Captain Day stood on the bridge of Indomitable, watching the enemy approach. His fleet was arrayed in a massive sphere around Earth, with the dimensional fold generators at the center. Everything depended on timing. They had to let the Devourers get close enough to trap, but not so close they could consume Earth before the fold activated. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Human vessels at the core. Alien support craft in outer shells. We're as prepared as we're going to be." Day opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is it. Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment. The Terrans faced this enemy alone and barely won. We faced them together. That makes us stronger. Remember your training. Trust your squadrons. And know that whatever happens today, we write the history that comes after." In the fighter bay of the lunar base, G1 climbed into his Terran craft. Around him, 49 other pilots did the same. They were the awakened ones, the humans who carried the strongest genetic memories. Their job was crucial: protect the fold generators until activation. Remember what the Keeper said. Haeun Kim spoke over the squadron channel. Don't lose yourself in the memories. We're human, not Terran. That's our strength. Easy to say, another pilot replied nervously. When those things get close, the Terran memories scream at us to fight. To destroy. Hard to remember we're different. Then hold on to something human, Jiwan said. A memory, a person. Something that reminds you who you are. For me, it's my sister. She's 8 years old and she still thinks I'm a hero. I'm not fighting as a Terran today. I'm fighting as her brother. The others shared their own anchors, family, friends, home, simple human things that the Terrans, in their isolation, had lost touch with. On the moon's command center, Dr. Hana Kim coordinated the dimensional fold sequence. 200 ships all needing to activate their systems in perfect harmony. The mathematical precision required was staggering. How are you holding up? Ambassador Yuna asked, standing beside her. Terrified, Hana admitted. We tested this once, and now we're betting the galaxy on it working. The Terrans would have confidence, Yuna said. They'd be certain of their technology. Good thing we're not them, Hana replied. Doubt makes us careful, makes us check our calculations 3 times. The Terrans' certainty was part of their problem. The Devourers entered weapon range. The first wave of conventional fire hit them and passed through them like they were ghosts. But the Terran weapons connected. Energy that manipulated dimensions themselves could hurt these creatures. All fighters launched, Day ordered. Buy us time, G1's squadron screamed into space. The sensation of piloting a Terran fighter was intoxicating. The ship responded to his thoughts faster than his hands could move. He and the machine were one entity, moving through space with impossible grace. The Devourers were massive up close, shapes that hurt to perceive, existing partially in dimensions human minds weren't built to understand. But the Terran part of G1's consciousness could see them clearly, could understand their patterns, could predict their movements. He fired, targeting the rifts where they connected to normal space. His shot hit true. One Devourer flickered and withdrew. But there were so many more. Too many. Squadron, defensive formation, he called. Protect the generators. The 50 Terran fighters formed a web of deadly precision around the dimensional fold generators. Any Devourer that came close met concentrated fire. It wasn't enough to destroy them, but it was enough to slow them, to hurt them, but the cost was terrible. Alien ships that ventured too close to the Devourers simply ceased to exist. Consumed so completely there wasn't even debris. Day watched the casualty count climb and felt each loss like a physical blow. How long until fold activation? He demanded. 3 minutes, his technical officer replied. But we've lost 30% of the outer shell ships. If we lose many more, the fold won't have enough power. 3 minutes, an eternity in combat. Day made a decision. All capital ships advance. Draw their attention away from the smaller craft. Sir, that's suicide, his XO protested. It's necessary, Day replied. We're the biggest targets. They'll come for us. 3 minutes. That's all we need to survive. Indomitable led the charge. The massive Terran dreadnought, surrounded by capital ships from a dozen species, advanced into the heart of the Devourer swarm. It was madness. It was also working. The Devourers turned their attention to the bigger threats, leaving the fold generators temporarily exposed. On the moon, Hana watched the tactical display with horror. What is he doing? He's going to get himself killed. He's buying us time, Yuna said quietly. Don't waste it. Hana forced herself to focus. All ships begin charging sequence. On my mark, 2 minutes. Indomitable shuddered as a Devourer touched its shields. The shields held but barely. Terran technology was designed to withstand these things. But there were limits. Another touch and the ship would be consumed. Day ordered evasive maneuvers. The massive ship turned with surprising agility, dodging the next attack by meters. Around him, other capital ships weren't so lucky. He watched an alien dreadnought disappear, consumed in seconds. 5,000 lives gone 1 minute. G1's squadron had lost 6 fighters. The remaining 44 held the line around the generators, their Terran weapons carving holes in the Devourer advance. But they were being pushed back. Slowly but inevitably overwhelmed. I can't hold them. Haeun screamed over the comm. Her fighter was surrounded, taking fire from multiple angles. Yes, you can, G1 replied, diving to support her. 30 seconds. Just 30 more seconds. 30 seconds. Hana's hands flew over the controls. The sequence was charging. 200 ships, their different energy signatures harmonizing into something beautiful, something the Terrans had never imagined because they'd never worked with other species. 20 seconds, she counted down. 19, 18. Indomitable took a direct hit. The shields collapsed. The hull began to dissolve. Dave felt the ship dying around him. All hands, abandon ship, he ordered. Sir, there's no time. His XO shouted. I know, Dave said calmly. He opened a final channel. This is Captain Day Park. Tell Earth. Tell them we held the line. Tell them it mattered. 10 seconds, Hana's voice came over all channels. 9, 8. But then something happened. The moon itself activated. Not just the base, but the entire moon. It had been a weapon all along, the ultimate Terran creation. And it recognized one of its own about to die. A beam of pure dimensional energy shot from the lunar surface, wrapping around Indomitable. The dissolving stopped. The hull stabilized. Day stared in shock as ancient technology responding to human DNA in danger saved his ship. 3, 2, 1, activate, Hana commanded. 200 ships released their energy simultaneously. The different frequencies, different approaches to reality, all combining. The dimensional fold opened. Not a small rift like in the test. A massive portal, larger than a star system that pulled at everything nearby. The Devourers fought against the pull. Their forms twisted and stretched as they resisted. But the fold was too strong. The combined power of 100 species, united and coordinated, overwhelmed them. One by one, they were pulled in, dragged into the dimensional fold that would trap them in a space between spaces. Not dead, perhaps. The Devourers might be beyond death, but gone, sealed away where they couldn't consume anything ever again. The last Devourer vanished into the fold. Anna held the portal open for 3 more seconds, making sure they had them all. Then she closed it. Reality snapped back into place with an almost audible click. Silence filled the fleet channels. Then someone started cheering. Then another. Then thousands. The sound echoed across every ship, every species united in victory. They had won. The Devourers were gone. Life would continue, but the cost was visible. 30,000 ships had entered the battle. 20,000 remained. Millions of lives lost. Dozens of worlds damaged or destroyed. The scars would take generations to heal. In the days after the battle, the galaxy struggled to process what had happened. Humanity had awakened. The ancient Terrans had returned in a way. But they weren't what anyone expected. Ambassador Yuna stood before the Galactic Council once more. This time there was no dismissal. No condescension. Every species watched with respect and, yes, still some fear. Honored members, Yuna began. We have proven we can wield the power of the Terrans. Now we must prove we won't abuse it. Humanity proposes a new galactic order. Not empire. Not dominion. Partnership. She activated a hologram showing a new structure. The Covenant of Equals. A joint defense force, shared technology, mutual protection. Humanity will contribute our Terran knowledge, but we won't hoard it. We'll teach, share, cooperate, and what guarantees do we have? Demanded a delegate. What stops you from changing your mind? From becoming the Terrans? Nothing, Yuna admitted. Except our choice. Every day we choose to be better than our ancestors. We choose cooperation over domination. We choose partnership over power. Judge us by our actions, not our heritage.